1999. Pokémon wasn't just popular, it was a cultural phenomenon. Children were trading cards in schoolyards before the first bell rang. Booster packs disappeared from store shelves within minutes. A single Charizard could spark arguments, trades, even fights. Outside Japan, one company controlled it all: Wizards of the Coast, the creators of Magic, The Gathering. They had built the biggest trading card game in the world. Nintendo trusted them with Pokémon. But within months, a series of decisions pushed the franchise into chaos. According to accounts from the time, Nintendo became increasingly frustrated with how the game was being handled in the West. Had things gone differently, the history of the Pokémon trading card game might have looked very different. This is the story of how Wizards of the Coast almost lost Pokémon. By the late 1990s, Wizards of the Coast were at the top of the industry. Magic, The Gathering had transformed tabletop gaming forever. No company had more experience producing collectible card games. So when Nintendo decided to launch Pokémon in North America, the choice seemed obvious. Wizards would manufacture the cards, distribute them, run organized tournaments, and introduce an entirely new audience to Pokémon. It looked like the perfect partnership. Then Base Set launched, and almost overnight, everything exploded. Demand exceeded every prediction. Stores sold out instantly. Parents couldn't find gifts, kids couldn't find cards. Wizards had underestimated just how big Pokémon would become, and that led to their first major mistake. Mistake 1. Coming from Magic, Wizards approached Pokémon exactly the same way. If demand increased, you simply printed more cards. But Pokémon collectors cared about something very different: First Edition. Instead of limiting First Edition to a short production run, Wizards continued printing it for months. The symbol that was supposed to represent rarity became far less exclusive. Collectors became frustrated. Retailers became confused. Parents had no idea which version was worth buying. Then things became even more complicated. First Edition disappeared, but the cards remained almost identical. Today, collectors call them shadowless. Only weeks later, another version appeared, now with shadows around the artwork and subtle design changes. Within 6 months, 3 nearly identical base sets existed. Nintendo wasn't happy. The company expected consistency. Instead, the Western release looked increasingly disorganized. Mistake 2. Then came Jungle, followed almost immediately by Fossil. Demand kept growing. Production couldn't keep up. Many stores received only tiny allocations. Entire shipments vanished within hours. Secondary market prices exploded. Children who wanted to play couldn't even find booster packs. Parents complained. Television covered the shortages. Pokémon was no longer just a fun children's game. It was becoming associated with scalpers, speculation, and chaos. For Nintendo, that was a serious problem. Pokémon was supposed to be a family-friendly brand. Instead, headlines focused on empty shelves and frustrated customers. Mistake 3 plus the turning point. Wizards needed a solution, so they released Base Set 2. The idea sounded reasonable. Reprint the most popular cards, increase supply, meet demand. But the market reacted very differently. Collectors preferred the originals. Players wanted brand new Pokémon. Retailers were left with inventory that suddenly stopped moving. For the first time, Pokémon cards were actually sitting on store shelves. To Nintendo, that was alarming. Reports suggested that momentum in North America was slowing. The relationship between Nintendo and Wizards became increasingly tense. Behind the scenes, Nintendo reportedly began reviewing the future of the partnership. Whether the license was truly close to being revoked remains debated today. But one thing is certain: Wizards needed a win. Fast. Ancient Mew that win arrived, in the form of one unforgettable card. Ancient Mew, released alongside Pokémon the Movie 2000. It looked unlike anything players had ever seen. Ancient symbols, brilliant holographic foil, a mysterious design that felt more like an ancient artifact than a trading card. It wasn't created for competitive play. It was created to be collected. Millions of moviegoers received one. Collectors loved it. Children loved it. Even people who knew nothing about Pokémon wanted one. Ancient Mew became one of the most iconic promotional cards ever printed. More importantly, it reminded everyone what made Pokémon special. Not just playing, collecting, discovering, owning something unique. Momentum returned, and confidence slowly followed. Aftermath. Wizards continued producing Pokémon cards for several more years. Print policies improved. Organized play expanded. New generations of Pokémon arrived. But Nintendo had learned an important lesson. It wanted complete control over its biggest franchise. In 2003, the partnership came to an end. Wizards printed its final English expansion, Skyridge. Ironically, one of the rarest and most valuable Pokémon sets ever produced. Looking back, it's easy to think Pokémon was destined to succeed, but history rarely works that way. A few different decisions, a few different outcomes, and the Pokémon trading card game could have taken a completely different path. Wizards helped build Pokémon into a global phenomenon. They also learned that managing the biggest franchise in the world is far more difficult than creating one. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more deep dives into Pokémon history, and let me know in the comments. Which Pokémon set do you think is the most underrated of all time?